Hello everyone, welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free and live Uncommon Sense parenting class. How is everyone doing? We are hanging in there. One more week of school for my kiddos. I'm looking forward to it. Our pool is open now. The kids are done with their extracurricular activities from the school year, and I am really looking forward to 2 months of not having to pack lunch kits. Now, as these extracurricular activities have been winding down, I've noticed a lot of parents kind of freaking out, for lack of a better term, about their kids not being willing to practice during their break. Now, this comes up during the year as well, but now that the activities they've been religiously attending every week during the school year are on summer break, while a lot of parents felt that the weekly sessions were practice enough during the year, they're now concerned that all of that effort, and let's not lie, money invested, will go to waste if our children don't keep practicing on their own during the summer. So let's talk about practice as a concept for young kids in general and as it applies to breaks. Before we get into it though, allow me to introduce myself. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Alana Robinson and I'm a parenting coach for parents of toddlers, preschoolers, and kindergartners. I help you understand why your children are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I'm your host here on the MudRoom. I'm also the host of the Parenting Posse Facebook group, and I'm the creator of the Parentability program, where I help you raise well-behaved kids of your own. So if you're watching, say hi, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another class. Okay, so first of all, let's redefine the purpose of extracurriculars for young kids. We're talking kids 2 to 6 years old here. We've discussed this before in our episode on observation, but I think it's particularly important that we focus on this for this one too, because parents often lose sight of what extracurricular activities are for young kids. We get so caught up in exposing them to new things and living vicariously through them that we forget that extracurricular activities serve 3 very specific purposes for young kids. The first is to expose them to new experiences, expose them to different sports, arts, and other pastimes. They're little. Unless your child is some kind of prodigy, the idea here is variety. Because if you can't bounce around from one interest to another from 2 to 6 years old, when the hell can you? The second is to expand their friend group. Most kids see the same kids over and over and over at daycare, preschool, kindergarten, maybe a religious gathering or neighborhood group. The idea of extracurriculars is to spend time with people who have similar interests as you do, who you wouldn't usually have crossed paths with. And the third is to habituate them to learning from someone other than their parents and to learn group dynamics. Most young kids spend most of their time listening to a handful of adults, and they get very used to how each of those adults operates. Being in an extracurricular with a coach or teacher you aren't super familiar with helps kids learn universal expectations, like standing in line, how to tell when an adult is giving you directions, putting your hand up to speak, asking to go to the bathroom, looking at your peers and mimicking them, etc. Note that nowhere in there did I say to find your future career, for mom or dad to live out their childhood dreams, or to become the next Olympic champion. If any of those things happen, that's cool. But the number of people who find their passion at age 2 and follow it through to an adult career is minuscule. It's a fluke. It's not a purpose. Which brings us to, if your child has been participating in a sport, an art, or an activity and refuses to practice outside of the program time, should we be forcing it? And the answer for children under the age of 16 is unequivocally no. Why? Because the purpose of these activities is not to turn them into an occupation. They're to explore different aspects of life and find something that brings you joy and relaxation, that fills your cup, that regulates you, that connects you to a community of people who also find joy and regulation from participating in that activity. The second reason is that children do not learn through drills, they learn through play. The same as academics. It doesn't matter if you give your child a worksheet or you run them through soccer drills. You're putting adult-centered and adult-led priorities over what their brain and body is prioritizing. And there is so much development happening in early childhood that prioritizing what we as adults consider important, that's going to displace the development that should be occurring at that time. And most often, that development gets skipped. It doesn't just get pushed into a different time frame, especially if that time frame never comes and they're never given the space and opportunity to explore freely at other times. And this can happen very easily if they're doing drills with you for an hour a day, and then suddenly they want nothing to do with the sport afterwards because they're burnt out. Extracurriculars are about the enjoyment of the activity, not the achievement. Your investment, the financial and effort investment and time investment, are not being invested in your child's stardom, okay? If the achievement happens, awesome. If your child wants to do drills or wants to practice their instrument all the livelong day, cool. But that should be a catalyst of internal motivation, not external. There's also the fact that we cannot perform at 100% all the time. It's impossible. We need rest, both physically and mentally, to integrate the knowledge we've acquired, to play with the skills we've developed, because it's within that play, the seemingly meaningless play, that we truly master a skill. I often use my own son as an example. He's now 8 years old, and when he was 2, he was absolutely terrified of the water. He wanted nothing to do with it, which was a problem because we have a pool, my parents have a pool, my husband's family has a cottage on a very large lake, and we live literally 2 kilometers from the Ottawa River. There's 2 very large beaches within a 5-minute drive of us. For his safety, I needed him to be able to swim. So we did start swimming lessons, but for that first couple of years, he still didn't want to get in the water outside of lessons. He played at the edge of the water at the beach. He would stick his toes in the water in pools or off the end of our dock, but I didn't force it. Sometime around when he was 4, everything suddenly clicked and he suddenly could not get enough of the water. He was in it constantly, and a cycle emerged where he would do swimming lessons throughout the year and he would start to stall towards the end of the year. And then he'd spend all summer playing in the water because we don't do lessons during the summer. And then come September, he'd have leaped up 2 levels in swimming lessons. By the time the pandemic hit when he was 6, he was asking to join our local swim team. And when tryouts started again after the pandemic, he got on that team no problem. And once again, his coaches are saying to me, he had explosive growth in his technique at the beginning of the year, but he's starting to kind of stall. And I'm not worried at all because I know he's reached a plateau in instruction. He's learned all the formal stuff. Now he needs to play with it for a few months. And I have no doubt in September I'll be hearing about how much he's improved over the summer. That time where he's just able to play with his skills and mess around with them, to just swim for the fun of swimming, that's where the true growth happens. And it's the same for all other sports. It's the same for the arts. It's the same for any kind of skill. You hit a certain level of mastery and you plateau. It's the cycle of success. Play is the key to getting off of that plateau. Play allows us to try things out that really shouldn't work, but sometimes do. Play gives us a new perspective. It gives us the freedom to fail. It creates space for exploration, and that's where true growth happens, when we're exploring. One more story before I leave you today from when I was in early intervention. I was working with a little girl who was unable to jump forward, which I know sounds like a very minor skill that most children just pick up by osmosis, but this little one had some muscle weaknesses due to a genetic anomaly, and while she could jump straight up in the air, she couldn't jump 1 step forward. And that's not a big deal at age 3, but can quickly hinder more advanced motor planning as you age. So I worked with her every day on jumping forward, much in the way people would train for a race or a big game. We did exercises, we practiced, we stretched, we went to physiotherapy. We probably worked for an hour a day just on jumping 1 step forward. And at the end of 10 months, she still couldn't jump 1 step forward without at least holding one of my hands. And I was devastated. This had seemed like the easiest goal that we had at the beginning of the year, and we were ending the year not achieving it. I felt like I'd failed her, quite frankly. The program I worked for was only active during the school year, so I bid them goodbye for the summer. And then in September, on my very first day back, this little one smiled a giant smile at me and said, "Lana, watch," and immediately jumped forward completely on her own. After 2 months of no practice. And her mom said she'd just been playing with it on her own throughout the summer, until one day, about 2 weeks before, she'd asked Mom if she could draw her a hopscotch pad on the driveway, and Mom was floored to see that she could actually do it. Without that break to just mess around with it, chances are we would have been at it for many, many more months. And that's just 2 examples. I have at least a dozen more. So if your little one is resisting practicing piano or doing soccer drills with you in the evening, chill. Get the ball out and just mess around with it. Turn some music on and play with it. Jam. Take the pressure off. If your child is naturally adept at it, they will want to do more of it. If they aren't, it might just be a passing phase, and that's okay. But forcing it is never going to be the garner of the kind of mastery you're hoping to achieve, at least not in early childhood. I hope that puts your mind at ease and helps you back off a bit this summer and trust that your child's play is functional and productive. Keep offering opportunities, and when they're ready and willing, they'll take them. If you're struggling with this, because I know it's hard to let go like that, come and talk about it in the Parenting Posse. We have a group of over 10,000 parents who all get it and are there to support you through that discomfort. The link is in the description. Have a wonderful last week of June, and I will see you next week for another Uncommon Sense Parenting class. Bye!